But what can we expect from Colin Baker as the Doctor?
Well, I'll give an answer. Who knows? No one else.
I'll give you a small hint. We don't know quite. In the script, he is just regenerated and goes through various sort of traumas and behaves in different manners. Now, I think this is, in a way, quite a good idea because possibly in that time he will find a way that he really wants to play it. Now, usually the regeneration is the last episode of a whole series, and the poor actor who's playing the new Doctor sits up out of the dying body, says hello, and then he goes away for 9 months worrying like mad about how he's going to play this part. Now, for the first time ever, this first episode is going to be at the end of the series instead of at the beginning of the next one, so that he has the chance of playing the part, and with me directing that we'll chat together, and with John Nathan Turner advising as well, which kind of attitude he wants to latch on to. And then he's got plenty of time to think, having already tried out various ways. So we hope that this will work well for him, because it's quite traumatic for an actor to take over the Doctor, not knowing really how he wants to behave. Oh, thank you. Whose choice is it?
Oh, yes,
I'm not sure who to address this question to, so I'll leave it open to whoever feels best suited to answer. How do you account for the difference in the age of the audience that Doctor Who appeals to in the United States and, say, in Great Britain? You see that in the United States it appeals to an older bunch of people than it does there. It's much more of a kiddie show there.
No, I don't think there is that much of a difference, is there, between the English audience and the American audience. It's very varied in England as well. There's a very large adult audience in the United Kingdom too. I don't really think there is much difference, is there?
I think the main difference is that in the United Kingdom, people started watching it as children and have grown up with it and have stayed with it. And the 25-year-old who's now watching it originally watched from behind a sofa because he found it extremely frightening. Whereas in the United States, it is the teenager, the later teenager going into 20s who is coming to it fresh. I think also here, it's put out much later at night. Originally, it went out around about 5:30 in the afternoon, whereas here, I think it goes out after 11. Yes. Well, 5-year-olds in Britain shouldn't be awake.
How long has Doctor Who been showing in the States?
7 years.
7 years. Oh, yes. I see. Well, I'm going to say, I think in latter years, the scripts have become more sophisticated. Now, you started far later than I mean, it's been running 20 years in England. The same sort of audience, you probably wouldn't have watched to the same degree the very early scripts. So I think they are much more sophisticated now than they started out as. Who's got?
Oh, it's my turn. Yes, you mentioned children who watch behind the sofa because it's frightening. I read that during the early Baker years with Philip Hinchcliffe, there was a lot of criticism of excessive violence, and it was too frightening in England. Have you, in the more recent years, had that problem of complaints from the organized viewers about too much violence in the show?
I think you have a lot of latitude with Doctor Who because it is set in the main on another planet at another time. And I think the ones that came in for most criticism in Britain were the ones that children could identify. I can't remember the name of the story, but there was one in which dolls, models in shop windows.
Terror of the Autumns?
Thank you.
Probably.
Came to life. And that, I think, children did find worrying. There was another one that Daleks came out of the underground tunnels. And again, the children could actually see an underground tunnel and possibly something nasty might come out. You can show something which is green, slimy, nasty, and horrendous, as long as you say this is from another galaxy. So that recently, I don't think so many criticisms have been levelled at us, because the frightening aspect is a very straightforward black and white aspect. It's not an insidious nastiness, which we are now starting to get with other programmes.
Actually, it's a strange thing, that, isn't it? Because in fact, it seems entirely okay for people to get blasted to pieces with machine guns, but not okay for somebody to have someone come up behind them with a knife and hold it down their throat. It seems to me that it seems quite much more acceptable for the gun thing, whereas the other kind of threat would be perhaps considered. I'm not saying this is where it should be. I'm just saying that it seems to be that way around. I mean, you talk about violence. What about Tom and Jerry?
Just to correct myself, it wasn't Tele the Autons, it was Spearhead from Space where the dummies came to life, I think. I know.
Is it me?
It's you.
Yeah, someone from further. Yes, is it lady over there? Whatever persuaded me to start writing, there's a sort of hidden hint in that, the way you asked that question. Well, I'd been interested in writing, and I had written lots of scraps that were hidden in cupboards and things, and never saw the light of day, like everybody, I suppose. And during early rehearsals, Tom had a very good idea for a television script, and he and I used to chat about it and talk about it and make little notes and so on. And we sort of, I think Tom at some point mentioned it to the production office, but they didn't seem terribly interested. And we started working on it as a film script. And I got really interested and hooked on the thing then. And when I left the programme, I was asked if I'd like to try my hand at doing an adaptation. And I did. And I've been doing them since then. So it's in a way kind of accidental.
My turn, I think. So, you're ready.
This is from Miss Sutton. How old are you, if you care to answer? And how did you come to be on Doctor Who?
I was asked how old I was, and I am. That's what Dad I am. And how I came to be in Doctor Who. I'm 22 next month. That's an easy part to answer. I had an audition for Nyssa, or whenever it was, and it wasn't decided then that Nyssa would carry on as an assistant. When I got the job, I understood it would be for only one story. I was like a guest artist in the show, and I was very surprised to find out that the character was going to be carried on.
Me to choose. Gentleman there.
Yes, I've noticed from some of the episodes that your heels seem to be rather high. I was wondering, how tall are you?
Are you sure that that's me? I always made sure my heels were very low because I couldn't run very fast. Which one do you think? I mean, I'm being quite honest.
Well, I think the one thing in Robot I was noticing, you have the platform shoes.
Oh, no, platform shoes are a totally different thing.
Next question, please.
There's a white arm at the back. Yes.
This question is for Ian Marter. It seems that Harry, there were a lot of times when he didn't get very much to do, but he had a lot of character within. So do you ever feel frustrated that you weren't getting enough to do, or that you wanted to do more things with the character?
Did I ever feel frustrated that Harry wasn't getting enough to do? Constantly is the answer to that, yes. It's really a bit of the reason really I think is that my character, the character of Harry, was brought in at a time when the new Doctor wasn't completely decided upon. And I think they felt they needed to have somebody around to sort of leap through glass panes and out of high windows and run up and down cliffs and things, just in case whoever they got was perhaps one of the more elderly, shall we say, of the acting fraternity who might not be able to do it. When, of course, Tom was finally cast and everything, that immediately became superfluous. But by then I was, shall we say, contractually involved, and they had to find things for me to do, which they sometimes managed to do and quite a lot of the time didn't. So in a way, that's the reason that I think Harry was quite spare, in both senses of the word, quite a lot of the time. I think that actually I would have preferred to have been a bit more active and perhaps a bit more sensible, although it's quite fun playing a sort of, what's the word for naff? Cretinous. Imbecile, an imbecile
He
character.
wasn't, he let him
right.
an injustice.
Yes, it was quite often very frustrating.
I have a question for Sarah. When you were like with the doctor and stuff, would you feel that the things you did were as Sarah Jane Smith would be the things you would do as Elisabeth Sladen?
Would the things that I did as Sarah Jane Smith be the things that I would do as Elizabeth Sladen? I hope not. There is a lot of me in Sarah. There has to be, really. I sort of heightened various elements of going a little bit too far that I wouldn't do myself. It's a tricky one because I like her very much. No, there's a lot of things that Sarah had to do that I really wouldn't do, but what I do think we're alike in is that we both jump before we think. I'll do something and then think afterwards, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But I used that with Sarah because I thought, well, I have to make the same mistakes every week. I mean, really dumb, you know? You have to, that's the format. Fall down a hole, get rescued, whatever. So as long as they would let me do it, and writers and directors, producer were always very good, very helpful. As long as they would let me do it with the right reason, that I was helping my friend, the doctor, and I didn't mind. I didn't really feel such a fool. We've lost track of it.
Yeah,
No, I have lost track of myself.
Sorry. Gentleman there?
I was just wondering if the two directors might be able to answer. Why was the episode shaded scrap?
Charlotte. Well, it was a complicated reason. They had shot all the film in University town of Cambridge in England, and they had recorded one studio episode, and there was an electrician strike, the BBC, which postponed, which went on something like 6 weeks, I think, and they couldn't then finish the program because they'd lost their studio dates, they'd lost their contracts for the actors who were contracted for a certain period, and then John Nathan Turner took over as producer. After that, it was Graham Williams at that time, and when John came in, quite a few months had gone by, and he did try to reassemble it, but he was doing episodes that were only four parts. He'd worked out his season, and he did try to reorganise this and put it into 4 parts, but it really wouldn't go very well, and they also found that they couldn't recontract some of the artists. For instance, Christopher Neame, who was playing one of the leads in it as a guest artist, was then doing something else. And the whole thing became too impossible to remount, and it was a very expensive job because everybody has to be recontracted and all the sets rebuilt and so on. And if they'd had to change some of the cast, they would have had to refilm a lot of it as well. So the whole thing just was too complicated to begin again.
I don't really know. I mean, I worked on the show at the time that Douglas Adams was script editor, and certainly we did have some, as you say, some very witty scripts. But I don't know what his contractual arrangements were. I know he was working on Hitchhiker, preparing Hitchhiker at the time, but I'm sure he had to go on and do other things. You know, it's a question, really, I suppose, that John Nathan Turner would be best placed to answer, as having contracted him. Oh, my choice. No.
All right, Nicholas. In Terror of the Zygons, what was it like working with the creatures like the Zygons with all the suckers on them and stuff?
John would not. What was it? Yes, he was a Zygon. What was it like working with the creatures?
Yeah.
Like working with other creatures, I suppose, except that I had a kilt on at the time. I think, well, yes, the question was, what was it like working with Terror of the Zygons? No, well, what with Zygons? like, I'm going to repeat myself, like with the other monsters. Really. Yeah.
Have you finished then?
Yes.
Gentleman here.
Yes, I was just wondering, during your last few episodes on the Doctor, you were in a so-called old control room. Do you know why they changed the set for that particular season?
Why they changed the setting in the last season, I think, to the old control room?
Yes.
I do wish I could answer that question. I never really bothered myself much about what was happening as the fans do, in the way that you notice every time little detail. Was I ever in the new control room? I
Yes.
was.
Yes.
See, that's terrible. I really don't remember.
In your third season you were.
In the third season.
Was
There
this
must
the one
be
that
a-
was like the library, that they all sort of antique?
Yes.
There must be a very good reason why they did. If anyone can help me out, or as a question for John Nathan Turner again, I mean, obviously it's a technical question. I'm sorry, I'm not up to answering.
I think it was an idea that there were going to be two control rooms in the Tardis, and that they could use one or the other. Am I wrong?
I think so. Yes, there was a sort of spare control room, a sort of number 2 control room, in case oil got into the works of the first one. I used to like the rooms off very much. I mean, we used to have there was a little kitchen in one of the stories. Oh yes, and a pair of Wellington boots standing beside a fridge. It was rather nice. But as far as the use of as far as the use of control rooms are concerned, I'm not absolutely certain. I think one was being sort of repainted or something like that.
There was too a very glamorous bedroom for Sarah Sutton and Janet Fielding.
Oh,
Three
wasn't it
bedrooms.
just? Yes. Palatial.
It's for Miss Sutton. At what age did you begin acting, and what were some of your first shows?
The question was, what age did I begin acting, and what were some of my first shows? I began acting, well, the first professional job I did, I was 9, and it was playing part of Baby Roo in Winnie the Pooh. In a musical in the West End of London, the Phoenix Theatre. I did that for 3 Christmas seasons. It was a Christmas show. It was a bit like a pantomime, but more of a children's musical.
And she was very good in it because I saw it.
And I did that for 3 Christmas seasons. I did my first television when I was 11.
The characters have all traveled through many different times and cultures. And did you ever come across one particular one that you liked and wouldn't mind sort of staying and live there?
Well, the question was going through the times and spaces that the companions have, and planets, whatever, where was one they wouldn't mind staying on? Well, the Brigadier never liked to get the TARDIS, and he preferred staying on Earth, and I agree. I mean, mad though the world is sometimes.
No, that's it. John,
Oh, my turn. Yes. There's a hand. Yes, that hand there with the fingers.
I've seen various campaign stories, little underground campaigns, people that want to bring back units, people that want to bring back companions that are gone or whatever. Have any organized campaigns ever been received by the show, and has any of that sort of thing been acted upon?
John Nathan Turner would be the
I
best.
should imagine any letters directed to the BBC would be read, but I don't think any of us in here in a position to say what exactly would result of it. I'm sure that they note it and act as they think accordingly in the best interest of the programme.
It's also, I think, difficult to bring back companions, particularly, and suddenly give them to a new doctor. Because they belong in a different, if the doctor's regenerated, then the companions will have had to too. It becomes very complicated.
The programme must progress. I mean, there must be an advancement throughout.
Yes. Right, my turn to pick. The gentleman back there.